my fiancé said. Your friend Jake is way more attractive than you. I should have picked him. I said, you should have. Sometimes the truth hits you like a freight train, and sometimes it hits you like Chloe's wine-slurred confession at Morton's Steakhouse on a Tuesday night that changed everything. I should have seen it coming, but love makes you blind to red flags that are practically waving in hurricane-force winds. I was sitting across from my fiancée Chloe at our usual corner table, celebrating my promotion to senior project manager at the engineering firm where I'd been grinding for the past 4 years. The whole gang was there. Jake, my best friend since college, his girlfriend Rachel, my sister Maya, and her husband David. We'd ordered the expensive bottle of wine, the kind that costs more than most people's grocery budget, because Chloe insisted we needed to celebrate properly. I was picking at my ribeye, actually feeling good about life for once. The promotion came with a $20,000 raise, enough to finally start looking at houses instead of throwing money away on rent. Chloe had been distant lately, but I figured wedding planning stress was normal. 3 months until our big day, and she'd been acting like every decision was life or death. This is so boring, she announced, loud enough for the neighboring tables to hear. Tom, you're just sitting there like a lump. Jake, tell us about that girl you met at the gym. I looked up from cutting my steak. What girl? Jake shifted uncomfortably. It's nothing, man. Just someone I talked to for 5 minutes. Oh, come on, Chloe pressed, her voice getting that edge it got when she'd had too much wine. Don't be modest. You're always meeting gorgeous women. It's so unfair. The table went quiet. Maya shot me a look that said trouble ahead, but I was still too naive to understand what was happening. Chloe, maybe we should, I started. You know what? She turned to face me, her green eyes glassy and unfocused. I need to be honest about something. Jake is way more attractive than you. Like, significantly more attractive. I should have picked him instead. The silence that followed was deafening. The couple at the next table actually stopped eating to stare. Rachel's fork froze halfway to her mouth. Maya's face went white, then red with anger. Chloe, I said quietly, you're drunk. I'm honest, she shot back. For once in my life, I'm being completely honest. Look at him. Really look at him. 6'2", those shoulders, that jaw. He could have any woman he wanted. And look at you. She gestured dismissively at me like I was something she'd scraped off her shoe. 5'9" on a good day, thinning hair at 28, engineering salary. You're fine, but you're not him. Jake stood up abruptly. Okay, that's enough. Tom, I'm sorry, man. She's obviously... Sit down, Jake, I said calmly, my voice steadier than I felt. Chloe, finish your thought. There's nothing else to say, she mumbled, suddenly realizing she'd detonated a nuclear bomb in the middle of our friend group. I just think Jake is more attractive. That's not a crime. You're right, I replied, pulling out my wallet and dropping enough cash to cover our meals. You should have picked him. I stood up, kissed Maya on the cheek, and walked out without looking back. The next morning, I expected an apology. Maybe tears, maybe a desperate explanation about too much wine and wedding stress. Instead, I got Chloe sitting at my kitchen table in yesterday's dress, makeup smeared, but stone-cold sober and somehow even more brutal. I meant what I said last night, she announced as I poured coffee. About Jake being more attractive? About being honest. Tom, I love you, but you were the practical choice. You're stable, you're predictable, you'll be a good provider. Jake is? Jake is the kind of man women fantasize about. The kind of man I fantasize about. I sat down across from her, my coffee mug suddenly feeling like a weapon I wanted to throw against the wall. So why are you marrying me? Because Jake would never settle down. He's too wild, too unpredictable. You're marriage material. Marriage material. Like I was a reliable appliance instead of a human being. And you thought telling me this would accomplish what, exactly? She shrugged, this careless gesture that somehow hurt worse than her words. I thought you should know where we stand. I don't want to start our marriage with lies between us. How thoughtful of you. My phone rang. Maya's name flashed on the screen. Don't answer it, Chloe said. Your sister probably wants to lecture me about last night. I answered anyway. Tom, Maya's voice was tight with anger. We need to talk. Without her. Maya, I appreciate, she's been flirting with other men for months, Tom. Openly. Right in front of you. Last weekend at your engagement party, I watched her corner Jake by the bar and literally press herself against him while you were talking to Dad across the room. The bottom of my stomach fell out. What are you talking about? Asked Jake. Better yet, ask her. But Tom, please, for once in your life, don't let someone treat you like garbage just because they're pretty. After Maya hung up, I stared at Chloe, really looked at her for the first time in months. The entitled tilt of her chin, the way she was checking her phone instead of trying to repair the damage she'd caused, the complete lack of remorse in her expression. Tell me about Jake, I said. What about Jake? Tell me about you and Jake. Her phone dropped from her hands. There is no me and Jake. But you want there to be. Tom, answer the question, Chloe. She looked trapped, like a shoplifter caught with merchandise in her bag. I may have expressed interest. But he's not interested in me. He's loyal to you. Expressed interest how? It doesn't matter. Nothing happened. It matters to me. She stood up, pacing now. Fine. Maybe I suggested we could have some fun before the wedding. Maybe I told him you'd never have to know. Maybe I said a lot of things, but he shot me down every single time. He's actually a good friend to you, which is more than you deserve. There was the truth, ugly and raw and completely devastating. My fiancé had been trying to seduce my best friend, had been planning to cheat on me before our wedding, and somehow thought I was the problem in this scenario. I called Jake an hour after Chloe finally left to think about our relationship. He answered on the first ring, his voice heavy with dread. Tom, man, I am so sorry about last night. She was completely out of line, and I should have shut it down faster. Maya says Chloe's been coming on to you. Silence. Long, damning silence. Jake, I need you to be straight with me. She's been persistent. Ever since you guys got engaged, actually. Started with little comments, then got more direct. I kept thinking it was just alcohol or wedding stress, but last weekend... What happened last weekend? She cornered me at your party. Said she was having second thoughts about marrying you, that she'd always wondered what it would be like between us. She suggested we could explore that curiosity before she was officially off the market. My hands were shaking. What did you say? I told her she was drunk and needed to go find her fiancé. Tom, I swear on my mother's grave, I have never encouraged this. I've been trying to figure out how to tell you without destroying your relationship, but she kept saying it was just cold feet and it would pass. And you believed that? I wanted to believe it. You seemed happy, man. You were talking about houses and kids and growing old together. I didn't want to be the guy who ruined that over some inappropriate flirting. Jake was a good friend. Maybe the only real friend I had. But he was also conflict avoidant to a fault, the type who'd watch someone get hit by a bus if stopping it might create an awkward conversation. She told me this morning that I was the practical choice. That you're the kind of man women fantasize about. Jesus, Tom. I'm so sorry. Don't apologize. You didn't do anything wrong. But I need to know everything. Every conversation, every time she crossed a line, everything. For the next hour, Jake painted a picture of my fiancée that I'd been too blind or too stubborn to see. The woman who'd been systematically undermining our relationship while planning her escape route, who'd been shopping for a better deal while wearing my ring, who'd seen our 3 years together as a placeholder until something better came along. While packing Chloe's belongings the next morning, I discovered something that changed everything. A family photo tucked behind her jewelry box showing her with an identical twin sister I'd never heard of in 3 years together. The woman in the photo looked exactly like Chloe but somehow completely different, standing in scrubs outside what appeared to be a veterinary clinic, her smile genuine and warm instead of calculated and posed. I stared at that photo for 20 minutes, my brain trying to process how someone could hide an entire sibling for our entire relationship. When I confronted Chloe about it during our final conversation, her mask slipped completely. Oh, that's Ivy, she said dismissively, not even bothering to look embarrassed. My twin sister. She lives in Portland. Your twin sister, I repeated slowly. Who you've never mentioned. Not once. In 3 years. It never came up. She was packing her designer clothes into garbage bags like the conversation bored her. We're not close. She's always been jealous of me, so I don't talk about her much. The casual cruelty in her voice made my skin crawl. This was her sister, her twin, and she spoke about her like an inconvenient acquaintance. Jealous of you how? She's a veterinarian, thinks she's better than everyone because she saves animals or whatever. Acts like I'm shallow because I care about looking good and having nice things. She's probably still single, living with like 10 cats. The picture told a different story. Ivy looked confident, accomplished, surrounded by what appeared to be her clinic staff at some kind of celebration. She looked like success, like someone who'd built something meaningful with her life. Most importantly, she looked genuine in a way that Chloe never had. After Chloe left with her bags and her attitude, I called Maya. Did you know Chloe had a twin sister? Ivy? Of course I know about Ivy. I met her at Cousin Sarah's wedding 2 years ago. She's amazing, completely different from Chloe. I actually wondered why you never mentioned her, but I figured it was complicated family stuff. Chloe never told me she existed. Maya was quiet for a long moment. That's actually insane. Tom, Ivy is everything Chloe pretends to be. She's smart, funny, successful, and genuinely kind. She asked about you that night, said she'd heard great things about the man her sister was marrying. She seemed excited to eventually meet you. She asked about me? She was curious about what kind of man could make Chloe settle down. I showed her pictures from your engagement party, and she said you looked like you made her sister really happy. It was sweet, actually. She seemed proud of Chloe for finding someone solid. The irony was devastating. While Chloe was busy planning to cheat on me with my best friend, her twin sister was across the country thinking highly of me, proud of her sister for landing a good man. Maya, I need Ivy's contact information. Tom, are you sure that's a good idea? You just got out of a relationship with her identical twin. I have some of her family photos. I should return them. It wasn't entirely a lie. There were family photos in Chloe's things that probably belonged to both sisters. But mainly, I was curious about the woman who looked exactly like my ex but seemed to be her complete opposite in every way that mattered. I found Ivy on social media that night, her profile a stark contrast to Chloe's carefully curated lifestyle posts. Where Chloe's Instagram was full of selfies and expensive dinners, Ivy showed rescued animals, hiking trips, her clinic staff celebrating successful surgeries, and genuine moments with friends who looked like they actually enjoyed her company. Her latest post was a video of her bottle feeding an abandoned kitten, her face lit up with pure joy as the tiny animal responded to her care. I stared at that video for way too long, watching this woman who looked exactly like Chloe but radiated warmth instead of calculating coldness. I sent her a direct message that night, keeping it simple and respectful. Hi Ivy, I'm Tom, I was engaged to your sister Chloe. We recently ended our relationship, and I have some family photos I think might belong to both of you. Would you like me to mail them to you? She responded within an hour. Hi Tom, I'm sorry to hear about you and Chloe. I hope you're doing okay. I'd love to have the photos, thank you for thinking of me. My address is... But then she added something that made my heart skip. I hope this isn't inappropriate, but Maya showed me your picture a couple years ago and told me what a great guy you were. Chloe was lucky to have found someone who treated her so well. I'm sorry it didn't work out. We started texting daily after that. What began as polite conversation about the photos turned into hours-long discussions about everything from our careers to our dreams for the future. Ivy was completing her residency in exotic animal medicine, working with zoo animals and wildlife rehabilitation. She spoke about her work with the same passion I felt about engineering, the same drive to build something meaningful and lasting. I always wanted to be the person animals could count on when they couldn't help themselves, she told me during one of our late-night phone calls. There's something pure about that relationship. They don't lie, they don't manipulate, they don't pretend to be something they're not for personal gain. The subtle dig at her sister wasn't lost on me, but Ivy delivered it without malice, just as an observation about what she valued in relationships. That's exactly how I feel about structural engineering. I found myself saying, buildings don't play games. Physics doesn't lie. If you do the math right and build it properly, it stands. If you cut corners or ignore the fundamentals, it falls down. Simple. Honest work for honest people, she agreed, and something in her voice made my chest tight. We moved to video calls after 2 weeks, and seeing her face for the first time nearly knocked me over. She looked exactly like Chloe, but everything was different. The way she smiled reached her eyes. The way she listened when I talked, actually engaged with what I was saying instead of waiting for her turn to speak. The way she laughed at my terrible engineering jokes that Chloe always rolled her eyes at. Most importantly, the way she looked at me through the screen, like I was someone worth knowing instead of someone to be tolerated. I have a confession, she said during one of our video calls, her cheeks flushing pink. I've been curious about you for years. When Maya showed me your pictures, I thought Chloe was so lucky. You seemed kind and stable and genuine, everything I look for in a partner but never seem to find. You thought about me? More than I should have, considering you were my sister's fiancé. I used to wonder what it would be like to date someone who actually had their life together, who built things instead of just consuming them. The attraction was mutual and undeniable, but we were both too ethical to acknowledge it directly. Still, our conversations grew more personal, more intimate, more honest than anything I'd ever shared with Chloe. Ivy told me about growing up in Chloe's shadow, always being compared to her more outgoing, more traditionally feminine twin. How she'd thrown herself into academics and career achievement because intelligence was the only area where she could excel without competing directly with her sister's social advantages. Chloe always got the attention, the boyfriends, the easy path through life, Ivy admitted. I had to work twice as hard for everything because I wasn't the fun twin, the pretty twin, the one everyone wanted to be around. You're beautiful, I told her, and meant it completely. And accomplished and interesting and kind. Chloe may have gotten attention, but you built something real. The smile that spread across her face through the video call was worth more than every compliment Chloe had ever fished for. Jake suggested a guy's weekend in Las Vegas 3 weeks after my breakup, claiming I needed to get back out there and remember what fun felt like without someone criticizing every decision I made. I wasn't particularly interested in the Vegas scene, but Jake had already booked the Bellagio, and honestly, getting out of Phoenix sounded therapeutic after weeks of Chloe's friends asking invasive questions about our split and offering to set me up with their perfect cousins. What I didn't expect was walking into the hotel bar Friday night and seeing a woman who looked exactly like my ex-fiancée sitting alone with a veterinary conference badge clipped to her blazer. My heart stopped, then started racing when I realized it wasn't Chloe, it was Ivy, somehow even more beautiful in person than she'd been on video calls, her dark hair pulled back in a professional bun that had come slightly loose after what appeared to be a long day of presentations. Tom, she said, looking up from her wine with genuine surprise and delight. What are you doing in Vegas? Jake dragged me here for a bachelor recovery weekend, I said, gesturing toward where Jake was unsuccessfully trying to impress a group of women by the slot machines. Exotic Animal Conference. I'm presenting on emergency surgical techniques for wildlife rehabilitation tomorrow morning. She was brilliant, accomplished, contributing something meaningful to the world, and somehow sitting alone in a hotel bar because she was too focused on her career to waste time on shallow networking events. Mind if I join you? My friend seems to have forgotten I exist. Please, she said, sliding over to make room. I was just thinking how much I hate conference small talk. Everyone wants to know which zoo you work for and how much money you make, like that's all there is to a person. We talked until 4 in the morning, starting with our careers but quickly moving into deeper territory. Our childhoods, our dreams, our fears, our complete honesty about what we wanted from life and relationships. Ivy told me about growing up constantly compared to Chloe, how their parents had unconsciously favored the more outgoing twin while dismissing Ivy's quieter achievements. I graduated valedictorian, got a full scholarship to veterinary school, built my own practice from nothing, she said, her voice carrying years of accumulated frustration. But at family dinners, all anyone talked about was Chloe's latest boyfriend or her new job in marketing or how pretty she looked in her Instagram photos. I learned early that being smart wasn't enough. You had to be entertaining too. That's their loss, I told her, meaning every word. Chloe may be entertaining, but she's not substantial. You're both. The chemistry between us was electric, undeniable, like nothing I'd ever experienced with anyone, including her twin. When we finally left the bar, we walked the strip until sunrise, talking and laughing and discovering we had the same twisted sense of humor, the same values, the same vision of what a real partnership should look like. Standing on the pedestrian bridge watching the sunrise over the desert, Ivy turned to me with tears in her eyes. I need to tell you something about Chloe, about our relationship growing up. She's always been jealous of my accomplishments, but more than that, she's actively tried to sabotage my relationships since we were teenagers. What do you mean? Every guy I ever cared about, she found a way to seduce or steal or drive away. She'd flirt with my boyfriends at family gatherings until they started pursuing her instead of me. She'd spread rumors about me being too serious or boring or frigid. She'd show up at my dates wearing something revealing and find ways to monopolize the conversation until I became invisible. The pattern was becoming clear, and it was sickening. She told my college boyfriend I was cheating on him with my study partner. She convinced my first serious relationship that I was using him to make another guy jealous. She's been systematically destroying my romantic life for over a decade because she couldn't stand the idea of me being happy with someone she couldn't have. Ivy, that's psychotic. She's not evil, just incredibly insecure and competitive. But Tom, I need you to know, what's happening between us isn't about getting back at her or winning some twisted competition. I've been falling for you since our first phone call, and it has nothing to do with her. I kissed her then, on the pedestrian bridge as Vegas woke up around us, and it was like every romantic cliché came true simultaneously. Fireworks, electricity, the sense of coming home to a place I'd never been before. She kissed me back with 3 years of suppressed attraction and genuine emotion, nothing calculated or performed about it. I've never felt like this before, she whispered against my lips. Not with anyone. Neither have I. Not even close. We spent the rest of the weekend together, and it was perfect in a way that felt almost too good to be true. Ivy had extended her stay to Sunday, and we explored Vegas like tourists, holding hands and talking constantly and marveling at how easy everything felt between us. No drama, no games, no walking on eggshells wondering what mood she'd be in or what I'd done wrong. Just two people who genuinely enjoyed each other's company falling hard and fast. Sunday night, as we were saying goodbye at the airport, Ivy grabbed my hands. Tom, I need to know this is real. Not a rebound, not revenge against Chloe, not some weird twin fetish. I can't handle getting my heart broken by you. It's real, I told her, and I'd never been more certain of anything. You're real. This is real. And I think I'm falling in love with you. I think I'm falling in love with you too. We made plans for me to visit Portland the following weekend, and I was already counting the days. But our bubble of happiness was about to get a sharp, vindictive reality check. Monday morning, I woke up to 17 missed calls from Chloe and a series of increasingly unhinged text messages. I saw Ivy's Instagram story. You're disgusting. How could you do this to me? She's my sister. This is just to hurt me, isn't it? You're using her to get back at me. She's going to drop you the second she gets bored. She does this to every guy. I'm going to ruin both of you. You have no idea what you've started. Ivy called me that afternoon, her voice shaky with anger and hurt. Chloe's been blowing up my phone all day. She's threatening to call my boss, to spread rumors about my professional conduct, to destroy my practice if I don't stop seeing you. She can't do that. She's already started. She created fake accounts and posted negative reviews on my clinic's Google page. She called the veterinary board claiming I'm emotionally unstable and shouldn't be working with animals. She even contacted the conference organizers claiming I violated professional ethics by pursuing a personal relationship at a work event. The vindictiveness was breathtaking, even for Chloe. She'd rather destroy her own sister than see her happy with someone she'd discarded. We'll fight this, I told Ivy. We'll get lawyers, document everything, prove she's harassing you. Tom, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest. Is any part of this about getting back at her? Because if it is, I need to know now before this goes any further. I thought about it carefully, examining my motives with the same analytical precision I applied to engineering problems. 6 weeks ago, I would have said yes. Maybe I would have pursued you partly for revenge. But Ivy, what I feel for you has nothing to do with her. You're not Chloe's better twin, you're your own person, and you're the person I want to be with. If she'd never existed, I'd still be falling in love with you. And I'd still be falling in love with you, she said, her voice stronger now. So let's not let her ruin this. She's taken enough from both of us already. I flew to Portland the following Friday, my stomach churning with nerves and excitement as the plane descended through the Pacific Northwest clouds toward a city I'd never visited to see a woman I was pretty sure I was already in love with. Ivy met me at baggage claim wearing jeans and a veterinary clinic sweatshirt, her hair in a messy ponytail, looking more beautiful than Chloe had ever managed with 2 hours of preparation and a professional makeup artist. The drive to her apartment took us through tree-lined neighborhoods that felt like a completely different world from Phoenix's desert sprawl, and I found myself imagining what it would be like to live somewhere this green and alive. Her apartment was everything Chloe's had never been: books everywhere, plants thriving on every windowsill, photos of rescued animals instead of selfies, a cozy space that felt like a home instead of a showroom designed to impress visitors on social media. I know it's not fancy, Ivy said, suddenly self-conscious as I looked around her living room with its mismatched furniture and veterinary journals stacked on coffee tables. I spend most of my money on the clinic and the animal rescue. Interior design isn't exactly my priority. It's perfect, I told her, and meant it completely. It feels like you. Chloe's place always felt like a hotel, pretty but soulless. This feels like someone actually lives here. Someone with interests and passions beyond appearances. She took me to her clinic that afternoon, and watching her work was like seeing someone in their natural element for the first time. She moved through the facility with quiet confidence, introducing me to her staff, checking on recovering animals, explaining complex medical procedures with the same passion I felt when discussing structural engineering challenges. Her employees clearly adored her, not the fake workplace friendliness I'd seen at Chloe's marketing firm, but genuine respect and affection for someone who'd built something meaningful from nothing. Dr. Ivy saved my cat's life, one of the veterinary technicians told me while Ivy was examining a recovering hawk. Midnight got hit by a car, and 3 other vets said he was too far gone. She operated for 6 hours straight and refused to give up. That's the kind of person she is. She fights for the ones who can't fight for themselves. That evening, Ivy cooked dinner at her apartment. Nothing fancy but infinitely better than the expensive restaurants Chloe always insisted on. We talked about everything: our childhoods, our career goals, our dreams for the future, and I found myself sharing things I'd never told anyone, not even Jake. How I'd always felt like I was settling in my relationship with Chloe, how I'd convinced myself that love was supposed to be work and compromise and constant effort to be worthy of someone's attention. That's not love, Ivy said, reaching across the table to take my hand. That's emotional imprisonment. Love should make you feel more like yourself, not less. Is that how this feels to you? Like yourself? More like myself than I've ever felt with anyone. Tom, I've spent my whole life trying to prove I was worthy of the same attention Chloe got effortlessly. With you, I don't feel like I'm competing or performing or trying to be someone else. I just feel like me, and somehow that's enough. It's more than enough. You're everything I didn't know I was looking for. Saturday, we drove to the Columbia River Gorge for what she called the full Pacific Northwest experience, and I understood why she'd never wanted to leave this place. The waterfalls, the hiking trails, the way the morning mist clung to the forest canopy, it was like stepping into a nature documentary, beautiful in a way that didn't need Instagram filters or careful staging to be breathtaking. We found a secluded spot overlooking the river, and I realized I'd been carrying my grandmother's ring in my jacket pocket since Vegas, some unconscious part of me knowing this was inevitable. Ivy, I said, pulling the small velvet box from my pocket as she turned from admiring the view. I know this is insane. I know we've known each other for less than 2 months. But I also know I've never felt about anyone the way I feel about you. Her hands flew to her mouth, tears already starting. Tom, what are you? I'm asking you to marry me. Not because you're Chloe's twin, not because I'm rebounding, not because this is some elaborate revenge plot. I'm asking because in 3 weeks, you've shown me what love is supposed to feel like, and I can't imagine spending my life with anyone else. She was crying openly now, nodding before I'd even finished the question. Yes, yes, of course, yes. I love you, Tom. I love you so much it terrifies me. The ring fit perfectly, like everything else between us. We held each other on that overlook, both crying and laughing and marveling at how quickly everything had changed, how right this felt despite the insanity of the timeline. My parents are going to think I've lost my mind, Ivy said, admiring the ring through her tears. Engaged to my sister's ex-fiancé after knowing him for a month. Are they going to be a problem? My parents will be thrilled once they meet you. They never liked Chloe's attitude or her treatment of me. But her parents... She trailed off, and I could see the worry in her expression. Chloe's parents are going to lose their minds. They've always favored her, always taken her side in everything. They're going to see this as me deliberately sabotaging her happiness. Let them think whatever they want. We know the truth. But even as I said it, I could feel storm clouds gathering on the horizon. Sunday evening, as I was preparing to fly back to Phoenix, Ivy's phone rang. Her face went white when she saw the caller ID. It's my mom, she said, her voice tight with anxiety. Chloe must have told them. She answered with shaking hands. I could hear her mother's voice through the phone, sharp and accusatory, though I couldn't make out the words. Ivy's responses were defensive, then pleading, then hurt. Mom, please just listen to me for once. This isn't what Chloe told you. Tom is a good man, and what we have is real. More angry voices from the phone. Ivy's eyes filled with tears. No, I'm not doing this to hurt her. I'm doing this because I love him. Why can't you understand that I deserve to be happy too? The conversation ended with Ivy hanging up and collapsing onto her couch, sobbing with years of accumulated pain and frustration. They want me to break up with you, she said through her tears. They think I'm being vindictive and cruel, stealing my sister's happiness out of jealousy. My own parents think I'm capable of that. What did you tell them? I told them the truth. That Chloe cheated on you, that she never loved you the way you deserved, that you and I found each other honestly after her relationship with you was already over. But they don't want to hear it. They've already decided Chloe is the victim here. I held her while she cried, fury building in my chest at people who could know their daughter so little, who could reduce her to nothing more than her sister's jealous shadow. We'll get through this, I promised. Whatever happens with your family, we'll face it together. What if they cut me off completely? What if I lose everyone because I chose you? Then we'll build our own family. Ivy, look at me. She raised her tear-stained face to mine. You are not responsible for their inability to see how amazing you are. You are not responsible for Chloe's dysfunction or your parents' favoritism. You are only responsible for your own happiness, and if I make you happy, then that's all that matters. You make me happier than I've ever been in my life. Then that's enough. That's everything. But Monday morning brought news that would test that resolve in ways neither of us had anticipated. Chloe had apparently suffered what her parents called a complete nervous breakdown after learning about our engagement, and she'd been hospitalized for observation after making threats against both herself and us. Her parents were demanding I end my relationship with Ivy immediately, threatening legal action and claiming I was deliberately causing their daughter psychological harm. The battle lines were being drawn, and it was about to get very ugly, very fast. Chloe's parents demanded a family meeting the following Tuesday, flying into Phoenix unannounced and showing up at my apartment with the kind of righteous fury typically reserved for war criminals or people who kick puppies. Robert and Linda Morrison had always been polite to me during my relationship with Chloe, but now they looked at me like I'd personally destroyed their family legacy and probably kicked their dog on the way out. You need to end this sick obsession with our daughter immediately, Robert said, not even waiting to be invited inside before launching into his prepared speech. What you're doing to Chloe is psychological torture, and we won't stand for it. I'm not doing anything to Chloe, I replied calmly, though my hands were shaking with anger. She ended our relationship, remember? She's the one who told me I wasn't good enough for her. And now you're punishing her by pursuing her sister, Linda added, her voice dripping with accusation. This isn't love, Tom. This is revenge, and it's destroying our family. Your family was already destroyed. Chloe made sure of that when she spent months trying to seduce my best friend behind my back. They exchanged glances, clearly having heard a different version of events. Chloe told us you were controlling and emotionally abusive, Robert said. That you isolated her from her friends and made her feel worthless. She said you probably drove her to seek comfort elsewhere. The rewriting of history was breathtaking. Somehow, in Chloe's version, I was the villain for asking her to contribute to our relationship while she was the victim for systematically betraying me. She's in the hospital because of you, Linda said, pulling out her phone to show me photos of Chloe in a psychiatric ward, looking genuinely broken and medicated. She tried to hurt herself when she found out about you and Ivy. The doctors say she's having a complete psychological break. The photos were jarring. This wasn't the confident, manipulative woman who'd casually destroyed me at Morton's Steakhouse. This was someone who looked genuinely shattered, and despite everything she'd done, I felt a pang of sympathy. I'm sorry she's struggling, I said and meant it. But that doesn't change what happened between us, and it doesn't give her the right to destroy Ivy's life out of spite. Ivy is our daughter too, Robert said. And she's making a terrible mistake that's going to ruin both their lives. We're asking you to be the bigger person here. Walk away from this relationship before it destroys what's left of our family. Have you talked to Ivy? Have you asked her what she wants? Ivy is confused, Linda said dismissively. She's always been jealous of Chloe, and now she thinks she's won some kind of competition by stealing her sister's fiancé. But this isn't real love, it's sibling rivalry taken to a destructive extreme. The casual dismissal of their own daughter's feelings was infuriating. These people had spent Ivy's entire life treating her like Chloe's understudy, and now they couldn't fathom that someone might genuinely prefer her to their golden child. You're wrong about Ivy, I told them. And you're wrong about our relationship. But even if you weren't, I'm not going to end my engagement because it inconveniences you. They left threatening lawyers and claiming they'd find ways to make both our lives miserable if we didn't come to our senses. I called Ivy immediately, needing to warn her about what was coming. They were here too, she said, her voice hollow with exhaustion. Spent 3 hours telling me I'm selfish and cruel and mentally unstable. My own parents, Tom. They actually suggested I need therapy to work through my unhealthy obsession with competing with Chloe. What did you say? I told them the truth about growing up in this family. About years of being overlooked and dismissed and treated like Chloe's inferior twin. About how they never once asked what I wanted or needed, never celebrated my achievements, never stood up for me when she was tearing me down. She was crying now, years of suppressed pain finally finding voice. I told them about every boyfriend she stole, every opportunity she sabotaged, every time they chose her happiness over mine without question. And you know what they said? What? That I was being dramatic and vindictive. That Chloe never meant to hurt me, she was just naturally more outgoing and social. That I should be grateful she helped me see that those relationships weren't right for me anyway. The psychological damage was staggering. Ivy's own parents had spent decades gaslighting her into believing her sister's cruelty was normal sibling behavior and her own pain was unjustified self-pity. They want me to choose, she continued. Chloe, they said if I marry you, I'll be dead to them. No contact, no family events, no relationship with them or my extended family ever again. My heart sank. Ivy, if you need to, I choose you, she said firmly. I choose us. Tom, these people have never supported my happiness or respected my choices. Why would I sacrifice the best thing that's ever happened to me for their approval? Are you sure? Family is important and you're my family now. You and whatever family we build together. I'm done begging people to love me who've already made it clear they don't. Her strength was incredible, but I could hear the heartbreak underneath it. She was choosing love over family, authenticity over acceptance, and I knew that decision would haunt quiet moments for years to come. Meanwhile, Chloe's campaign of destruction was escalating. She'd created dozens of fake social media accounts to harass both of us, posting our photos with captions claiming we were cheaters and homewreckers. She'd somehow gotten my work number and called my boss claiming I'd sexually harassed her and stolen money from her during our relationship. She'd filed false police reports claiming I was stalking and threatening her, forcing me to hire an attorney and document my whereabouts constantly. Most disturbingly, she tracked down several of Ivy's veterinary school classmates and colleagues, spreading rumors that Ivy was professionally incompetent and had deliberately killed animals in her care. The attacks were systematic, vindictive, and potentially career-ending for both of us. "We need a restraining order," my lawyer advised after reviewing the evidence. "This goes way beyond normal breakup drama. She's trying to destroy both your lives systematically." But the restraining order process would take weeks, and Chloe was escalating daily. She'd started showing up at my apartment building, sitting in her car for hours taking photos and posting them with captions about stalking the stalker. She'd called every veterinary clinic in Portland claiming Ivy had stolen drugs and abused animals, forcing Ivy to spend hours each day defending her professional reputation. The stress was destroying us both. Ivy was losing weight, barely sleeping, jumping at every phone ring and constantly checking security cameras at her clinic. I was walking on eggshells at work, afraid every meeting with my boss might be about another false accusation from Chloe. "She's winning," Ivy said one night, exhaustion clear in her voice during our video call. "She's making us miserable, driving us apart, destroying everything we've built. Maybe this is too hard, Tom. Maybe we should—" "No," I said firmly. "She doesn't get to win by being the most vindictive person in the room. We're better than this, and what we have is worth fighting for." "But at what cost? Our careers, our mental health, our families. The cost of letting toxic people control our lives is always higher than the cost of standing up to them. Ivy, I love you. I want to marry you and build a life with you. Don't let her take that away from us." The breaking point came when Chloe's parents called one final time, claiming they'd found a way to have Ivy committed for psychiatric evaluation if she didn't end our relationship voluntarily. The threat was probably empty, but it revealed just how far this family was willing to go to maintain their dysfunction. "That's it," Ivy said after hanging up. "I'm done with all of them. Tom, let's get married. So, before they find new ways to destroy us." "Are you sure?" "I've never been more sure of anything. Let's show them what real love looks like." 2 weeks later, Ivy and I stood in the Desert Botanical Garden in Scottsdale on a perfect Saturday morning in March, surrounded by blooming cacti and the people who actually mattered in our lives. Maya had planned the entire ceremony in 10 days, transforming a small pavilion with white flowers and string lights into something magical, proving that love doesn't need months of planning to be beautiful, it just needs to be real. Jake stood beside me as best man, grinning like he'd personally orchestrated our happiness, while Ivy's maid of honor was Dr. Sarah Martinez, her closest friend from veterinary school who'd flown in from Denver with tears in her eyes and stories about how radiant Ivy had been since meeting me. My parents were in the front row, my mother already crying happy tears, my father looking proud and relieved that his son had finally found someone who appreciated him. Ivy's parents were noticeably absent, having made their choice clear, but her Aunt Claire and Uncle David had driven down from Flagstaff, representing the family members who actually cared about her happiness over drama. "You clean up nice for an engineer," Jake whispered as we waited for the ceremony to start. "Still can't believe this is happening." "Best thing Chloe ever did was show me what I didn't want," I replied, straightening my tie and watching the small group of guests take their seats. "Now I get to spend my life with someone who actually wants to be here." The music started, and Ivy appeared at the end of the aisle in a simple white dress that cost less than Chloe's typical dinner but made her look like something out of a fairy tale. She was carrying a bouquet of desert wildflowers, her hair loose around her shoulders, her smile so genuine and joyful that I had to blink back tears. This was what happiness looked like. Not the performed perfection of social media posts, but real emotion between real people who'd chosen each other deliberately and completely. As she walked toward me, I thought about how different this felt from planning my wedding with Chloe, which had been an exercise in meeting other people's expectations and managing her increasingly dramatic demands. This ceremony was about us, about our commitment to each other, about building something authentic and lasting. "Hi," Ivy whispered when she reached me, her eyes sparkling with happy tears. "Hi yourself," I whispered back. "Ready to do this?" "I've been ready since Vegas." The officiant, a family friend of Maya's who'd agreed to perform the ceremony on short notice, began speaking about love and commitment and the courage it takes to choose partnership in a world that often discourages genuine connection. I barely heard him because I was too busy staring at the woman who'd somehow become my everything in less than 2 months, marveling at how right this felt despite the unconventional timeline. That's when I heard the commotion at the garden entrance. Security guards were arguing with someone, their voices getting louder and more urgent. I turned to see Chloe pushing past them in a white wedding dress, not just any white dress, but the exact dress she'd ordered for our wedding, complete with the cathedral train and pearl beading that had cost more than my car payment. "Stop!" she screamed, running toward us with her dress trailing behind her like some deranged romantic comedy. "Tom, you can't do this. You belong with me." The garden went silent except for the sound of her heels clicking on the stone pathway. Our guests turned in their chairs, mouths open in shock, while the security guards chased after her looking mortified that they'd let someone in a wedding dress crash another person's ceremony. "Chloe, don't do this," I said calmly, stepping protectively in front of Ivy. "This isn't your day. This isn't your life anymore." "It should be my day," she sobbed, mascara streaming down her face. "We were supposed to get married, Tom. We had plans, we had a future, we had 3 years together. We had 3 years of you treating me like an ATM and planning to cheat on me with my best friend," I replied, my voice steady despite the surreal nature of the situation. "You ended our relationship, remember? I made a mistake. I was confused and scared and I didn't know what I wanted." She was gesturing wildly now, her voice rising to a pitch that was probably alarming the desert wildlife. "But I know now, Tom. I know that you're the man I'm supposed to marry, not her." "Chloe," Ivy said quietly, stepping up beside me with remarkable composure, "Tom is marrying me because we love each other. This has nothing to do with you anymore." "Nothing to do with me?" Chloe's voice reached a new octave. "He's my fiancé. You stole him from me, you jealous, pathetic..." "Ma'am," one of the security guards interrupted, finally catching up to her, "you need to leave immediately or we're calling the police." "Call them," she screamed. "This marriage is illegal. You can't marry your ex-fiancé's twin sister. It's sick and twisted and, actually, it's completely legal," Jake interjected helpfully. "Weird timing maybe, but definitely legal." Chloe spun around to face him, her expression wild. "You were supposed to want me, Jake. You were supposed to choose me over him." "I never wanted you, Chloe," Jake said with unusual firmness. "I tried to be polite about your advances, but I was never interested. Tom's my friend, and you treated him like garbage." "I loved him." "You loved his bank account and his willingness to put up with your crap," Maya said, standing up from her seat in the front row. "Tom, do you want to finish getting married, or should we all stand here watching your ex have a public breakdown?" But Chloe wasn't finished. In her complete meltdown, she revealed something that made everything click into place with sickening clarity. "You don't understand," she sobbed, looking directly at me with desperate eyes. "I was going to tell you after the wedding. About the baby, about Marcus from work, about how I was going to make it work somehow." The garden went dead silent. Even the security guards stopped moving. "You were pregnant?" I asked slowly. "With someone else's baby?" "It's complicated," she wailed. "Marcus and I only hooked up a few times, and I thought maybe if I timed everything right, you'd think it was yours after we got married. I was going to be a good wife, Tom. I was going to make it work." The final piece of the puzzle fell into place. Chloe hadn't just been planning to cheat on me, she'd been planning to trick me into raising another man's child, to build our entire marriage on a lie so profound it made everything else look like minor dishonesty. "Get her out of here," I told the security guards, my voice shaking with anger and disgust. "Now." As they led Chloe away, still screaming about stolen lives and invalid marriages, she turned back one final time. "This won't last, Tom. She'll leave you just like I did. Nobody stays with someone like you." The cruelty of it, even in her breakdown, was breathtaking. But Ivy's response was perfect. "I stayed with animals who were dying, Chloe. I think I can handle staying with a man who loves me." After the police arrived and took Chloe away for trespassing and disturbing the peace, we had a choice: cancel the ceremony and deal with the drama, or continue with our wedding and refuse to let her toxicity win. "What do you want to do?" I asked Ivy, taking her hands. "I want to marry you," she said simply. "Right now, in front of everyone who matters, so there's no question about what we chose and why we chose it." Even after all that insanity? Especially after all that insanity. Tom, she just proved everything we already knew about who she is and what she values. Now let's prove what we value. We turned back to the officiant, who looked slightly shell-shocked but game to continue. "Where were we?" he asked with admirable professionalism. "The part where they promised to love each other despite crazy family members," Maya called out, earning laughter from our guests and breaking the tension perfectly. When Ivy and I kissed as husband and wife 10 minutes later, it felt like victory, not over Chloe, but over the idea that love has to be complicated and dramatic to be real. Sometimes the healthiest thing you can do is choose the person who makes life simpler, not harder. Our first dance was to "At Last" by Etta James, and as we swayed together under the string lights, I realized this was what happiness felt like when it wasn't borrowed or stolen or built on someone else's misery. This was what it meant to choose each other every day, not because you had to, but because you wanted to. 6 months later, Ivy and I were settling into our new life in Phoenix with the kind of quiet happiness that doesn't make for dramatic social media posts but makes every ordinary day feel like a gift. I'd transferred to my company's environmental division, working on sustainable building projects that felt more meaningful than the corporate developments I'd been designing before. Ivy had opened a satellite clinic focusing on wildlife rehabilitation, partnering with local desert rescue organizations and finally getting to do the conservation work she'd always dreamed of. We'd bought a small house with a big backyard perfect for the 3 rescue dogs and 2 cats who'd somehow become our family, and I'd never been more content with the simple rhythm of coming home to someone who was genuinely happy to see me. That contentment was shattered on a Tuesday evening in September when our doorbell rang and I opened it to find Chloe on our front porch, looking like a shadow of her former self. Gone was the polished, entitled woman who'd crashed our wedding in designer drama. This version of Chloe was thin, hollow-eyed, wearing clothes that hung loosely on her frame, her hair unwashed and pulled back in a messy ponytail. She looked genuinely broken, and despite everything she'd done, my first instinct was concern rather than anger. "Tom," she said, her voice barely above a whisper, "please don't close the door. I need to talk to you." "Chloe, you have a restraining order. You can't be here." I know, but please. Just 5 minutes. I'm not here to cause trouble, I swear. I just need to say something." Ivy appeared behind me, her hand on my shoulder, her presence calming and supportive. "What do you want, Chloe?" she asked, not unkindly but with the wariness of someone who'd learned not to trust her sister's motivations. "I want to apologize," Chloe said, and then she did something I'd never seen her do in 3 years of knowing her. She dropped to her knees on our front porch, tears streaming down her face. "I want to beg you both to forgive me for what I did, for who I was, for the pain I caused." The sight was jarring. Chloe had never shown genuine vulnerability before, never admitted fault, never appeared anything less than supremely confident in her own righteousness. Seeing her literally on her knees was unsettling in a way that her dramatic gestures had never been. "Get up, Chloe," I said, genuinely uncomfortable with the display. "You don't need to." "Yes, I do," she sobbed, staying on her knees like some medieval penitent. "I need to grovel. I need to beg. I need to show you how sorry I am because I've lost everything, Tom. Everything. The baby, my job, my friends, my apartment, my parents won't even talk to me anymore. I have nothing left and it's all my fault." "What happened to the baby?" Ivy asked gently, her veterinarian's instincts kicking in even in this bizarre situation. "Miscarriage at 4 months. Marcus wanted nothing to do with me once he found out I'd been trying to pass the baby off as Tom's. Said I was crazy and toxic and he never wanted to see me again. She was crying harder now, her whole body shaking. I've been living in my car for 3 weeks. I lost my job because someone posted videos of me crashing your wedding online, and it went viral. Psycho X crashes wedding has like 2 million views. I can't get hired anywhere because when employers Google my name, that's what comes up. The fall from grace was complete and devastating. The woman who'd once bragged about being too good for men who couldn't afford expensive dinners was now homeless and unemployable, reduced to begging on the porch of the people she tried to destroy. "I'm sorry this happened to you," I said, and I meant it. "But Chloe, what did you expect? You tried to ruin both our careers, our relationships, our mental health. Actions have consequences." "I know," she whispered. "I know, and I deserve all of it. But Tom, please, I'm begging you. Choose me. Choose me instead of her. I know I don't deserve it, I know I treated you horribly, but I love you. I've always loved you, and I'll spend the rest of my life making up for what I did." The request was so delusional, so completely divorced from reality, that I almost laughed. This woman had spent months systematically trying to destroy my life, had publicly humiliated me, had planned to trick me into raising another man's child, and now she thought a tearful apology would undo years of damage? "Chloe," I said as gently as I could manage, "I'm married. Happily married. To someone who loves me, respects me, and treats me like a partner instead of a resource to be exploited. There is no choice to be made here." "But I've changed," she insisted, still on her knees, looking up at me with desperate eyes. "I've been in therapy, I've been taking medication, I've been working on myself. I know who I really am now, and I know that you're the only man I've ever truly loved." "You love the security I represented," I corrected. "You love the idea of having a stable provider who'd put up with your behavior. You never loved me, Chloe. You don't even know me." "That's not true. When's my birthday?" She opened her mouth, then closed it, confusion flickering across her face. "What's my favorite food? My biggest fear? What do I want to do with my life besides work? Name one thing about me that isn't related to my job or my bank account." Silence. After 3 years together, she couldn't answer basic questions about who I was as a person. "You see," I said sadly, "you don't love me, Chloe. You love what I could provide for you. There's a difference." Ivy stepped forward then, her voice compassionate but firm. "Chloe, you need professional help. Real help, not just therapy sessions you attend to prove you've changed. You need inpatient treatment for your mental health issues, and you need to rebuild your life without using other people as crutches." "I don't want to rebuild without him," Chloe sobbed. "Tom is the only good thing I ever had, and I threw it away because I was stupid and selfish and scared." "Then learn from that," Ivy said. "Learn to value people for who they are instead of what they can give you. Learn to build relationships based on mutual respect instead of manipulation. Learn to be happy with yourself before you try to find happiness with someone else." "I'll kill myself if you don't give me another chance," Chloe said suddenly, the desperation in her voice chilling. "I have nothing left to live for without you, Tom. Nothing." "No," I said firmly, pulling out my phone. "You don't get to use suicide threats to manipulate me into abandoning my wife and my happiness. That's emotional terrorism, and I won't participate in it." I dialed 911 while Chloe watched in horror. "I need an ambulance for a suicide threat," I told the dispatcher, giving our address. "The person is not in immediate physical danger right now, but she's threatening self-harm if her demands aren't met." "Tom, no." Chloe scrambled to her feet. "I didn't mean it. I'm not actually going to." "Then you shouldn't have said it," Ivy replied calmly. "Chloe, if you're genuinely suicidal, you need professional intervention. If you're just trying to manipulate Tom, this is what consequences look like." The ambulance arrived within 10 minutes, followed closely by 2 police officers who'd been briefed on Chloe's history of harassment and restraining order violations. As the paramedics evaluated her mental state, Chloe looked at me one final time with something that might have been genuine regret. "I really did love you, Tom. In my own broken way, I really did. I know you thought you did, I replied. But love isn't supposed to hurt people, Chloe. Love isn't supposed to be destructive or manipulative or conditional. I hope someday you learn what real love looks like. They took her away for a mandatory 72-hour psychiatric hold, and I knew it would probably be the last time I ever saw her. Part of me felt guilty for calling the ambulance, but Ivy reminded me that we'd potentially saved her life by getting her professional help instead of enabling her destructive patterns. 3 months later, Ivy and I sat in our backyard watching the sunset over the desert, our hands intertwined, her head on my shoulder, both of us glowing with the quiet joy of people who'd found their person against all odds. I have something to tell you, she said, her voice soft with barely contained excitement. Dr. Martinez confirmed it this afternoon. We're pregnant. I turned to look at her, tears already forming in my eyes. Really? Really? Due in June. I know it's soon, but I kissed her before she could finish the sentence, tasting salt from both our tears, marveling at how different this felt from every other major moment in my life. No drama, no conditions, no wondering if I was worthy of this happiness. Just pure joy shared between two people who'd chosen each other deliberately and completely. I love you, I whispered against her lips. I love our life, I love our future, I love everything we're building together. Even if it means dealing with my family drama for the rest of our lives? Especially then. Ivy, you chose me over everything that was familiar and easy. You chose our happiness over their approval. That's not just love, that's courage. As we sat there planning our future, talking about names and nurseries and the life we were creating together, I thought about how different this path had been from anything I'd planned. 6 months ago, I'd been engaged to someone who saw me as a meal ticket. Now I was married to someone who saw me as a partner, expecting a child with someone who wanted to build something real instead of just consuming what I could provide. Sometimes the best thing that can happen to you is having someone show you exactly what you don't want, because it makes you recognize what you do want when it finally appears. Chloe had been the lesson. Ivy was the reward. And our child would be the beginning of something entirely our own, built on a foundation of genuine love instead of convenient settling. Maya had been right that night at Morton's. I had dodged a bullet. But more than that, I'd found something I didn't even know I was looking for. Not just love, but peace. Not just partnership, but joy. Not just someone to grow old with, but someone who made me excited about every ordinary day we'd spend together. The sunset painted the desert sky in shades of pink and orange, and I squeezed Ivy's hand, thinking about how far we'd both traveled to find this moment. She squeezed back, and I knew she was thinking the same thing. Sometimes the most beautiful stories are the ones that start with everything falling apart, because that's when you discover what really matters and who's willing to help you rebuild it into something better than you ever imagined.